Al Chat. This is where we talk about our favorite Al-Anon and Alateen literature. And I'm very honored today that the guest said yes to doing the show. Cindy. Cindy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just so thrilled you said yes, and you chose a very interesting book, we should say, one that I never expected anybody to say was their favorite piece of conference-approved literature, but a very important one nonetheless. So would you like to tell everybody which book you chose?
Well, I chose the Al-Anon Alateen Service Manual, and it is kind of an interesting, even weird choice, I think, because most of us tend to think of the literature just in terms of the narrative books or the daily readers, but I use this book so much it has become truly one of my favorite pieces of conference-approved literature.
And the one we're talking about now, I just want to clarify for the reader or listeners of the show, is the 2014 to 2017 manual. It's got the purple cover. Every panel, every 3 years, they issue a new one. And even throughout the year, they issue revisions of this book. And the item number is P, as in pamphlet, even though technically it's a booklet. But I'm working through that. It's a P-24/27. When I did a little research on this book, and it's an interesting item number because it originally was 4 pamphlets that were P24, P25, P26, and P27. So they just combined all 4 books into one, and that's why you have that item number that's like a 24/27, and it still has the P, but I think it can be upgraded now to maybe a booklet number. But that's just my little 2 cents there, and I've talked to my sponsor about it.
It's definitely a work in progress, and I think that's one of the things I love about it. It's because the service manual is a work in progress, and it's all about our progress. And yet another reason that I like it so much is initially when I came into Al-Anon, I wanted a rule book. I wanted a list of things to do, and then I would do them, and then everything would be better. That was sort of my approach to life. And I think even though I misinterpreted what the service manual is about, just the very fact of the way that it evolves continues to show me that it isn't that. This isn't a rule book, and it is always changing and evolving and emerging because it's the voice of our group conscience at a worldwide level.
And it's not just, one book that is just from, the 1960s, and that's the way, it's been, and it's going to stay that way. I was surprised that even after the service manual comes out every 3 years, that there are still revisions that do come out throughout those 3 years.
Right.
I think we had some just, in 2015, just last year.
Yeah, just out of the last World Service Conference.
Mm-hmm. Quite a few pages to print out from the members' website, and it actually shows you what page number to put them into the book, too, which is kind of nice.
And, and to balance that idea that it is not just something from the 60s that always stays the same, in addition, the service manual, this edition, has the original concept section in there for historical purposes so that it doesn't also just change everything, leaving behind our history. It really values that history even as it's changing. And I think that dynamic has been so important in my Al-Anon recovery, and to be able to see it constantly in this one piece of literature is always so comforting to me. And it makes it a nimble piece of literature. I feel like the updates keep the language fresh because things change in how we talk about our experiences with the disease and with each other in service, and the language updates don't feel, they just feel meaningful and real to me, but yet I also don't feel like they're pushing me to do things I don't really want to do or I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, and I want to come back to the amendments section, which is what you referred to as the original concepts in there in the book that starts on page 229. But do you have a special section that you want to kind of focus on or kind of pull out?
Well, sure. I have a couple. I'll just mention 2 of them briefly. One is the anonymity section in page 91 to 94, and I have found myself going back to this section over and over throughout my service work particularly, but also in my recovery and in being a participant in a group. Because I often, again, with the rules, I tend to think anonymity is this rule that we have in Al-Anon, and you got to keep your anonymity, and I got to keep my anonymity. And as I've stayed in the program a while, I have had to sort of go and figure out this anonymity principle, the underlying principle underneath it, rather than just a rule. And what I really love about this section, I think this might have been the big turning point about when the service manual became such an important piece of literature to me. On page 92, there's a particular sentence that basically it's saying that whatever any member chooses to do with their own anonymity, how they want to be anonymous, it is not subject to criticism, that each member has the right to decide. And there was something that popped out about that sentence to me. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not really here to criticize or decide for others what their level of anonymity is. And that became a principle for me, not just about anonymity, but about like kind of everything. Like my job is not to criticize a decision that somebody else has made for their life. And that's really changed my relationships. So just being able to read that in the service manual because I'm researching anonymity because maybe somebody in a meeting wasn't keeping their job anonymous or something, or was telling us something about somebody else, and I was going to find something to say to them to make sure they didn't do it again. So that's kind of me and my disease, looking for the rule that applies. But the service manual answers me with a spiritual principle and reminds me that in relationship and in the relationships that I make through Al-Anon, that it is not my job to criticize and that other people have the dignity of choice. And that is a spiritual principle of anonymity, and it is theirs to choose. And I have found that to make a profound difference in my life and in my relationships. I mean, if you think about it, if you stop criticizing the decisions that other people make, oddly enough, you have better relationships, or at least I do. And so it's been very fruitful.
People like to be around me all of a sudden.
It's interesting. It's interesting how that works.
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to respect,
Yes.
Mutual respect. It's something that, that we respect their anonymity, and we also hope that they'll respect ours in turn. Yeah, I think that's a great spiritual principle of the program.
And it goes on to talk in that section, and so much is written in there, that anonymity means so much more. And I always like that invitation in Al-Anon, that what I may think of something at first, Al-Anon invites me that there's so much more to it than I first think. And it allows me the time that I need to take to find that. And it's kind of like Al-Anon's always waiting there for me. If I want to dig and think about it and massage it and understand it a little bit more, it's deep enough. The spiritual principle underlying it is deep enough for me to do that. And I've certainly found that in the service manual.
So would you say this is less of a book of rules and more of a book of principles?
Oh, I think so. I think I can go to just any number of sections in the service manual thinking I'm going to find the rule. And instead of that, it says, there's always sentences that say things like, you could think about it like this way. You could approach it this way. Your group might consider thinking of it this way. Very rarely is there something in there that said, you have to do it this way. And I feel like that's the same voice that my sponsor always had with me. She didn't say, you have to do this or you have to do that. She would say, well, why don't you consider thinking about it like this? Or maybe you could look at it from this point of view. So I feel those voices. I feel that gentle recovery of other people helping guide me as I'm looking for answers and looking for guidance. It's there.
This ends part 1 of 4 of episode 3. Hope you'll listen to the following episodes, 2, 3, and 4, that are also posted, and enjoy.